Good morning, Marcus.
Good morning, good to join you.
What do you make of the government's plan to ban disposable vapes?
Yeah, so we welcome the clarity. So the industry has been aware of this for over a year, and clearly we've been awaiting the confirmation of the actual date. So it's positive to have that to enable, despite your introduction, and we understand the negative consequences that have come, particularly in the last 2 years from these products. There's over 3 million smokers or former smokers that have transitioned across to vaping now, which is great for the societal benefit of this country and getting them off those killing products. But actually, yes, it has come with negative consequence. So there are some potential concerns that we may come on to, but ultimately we welcome the clarity. We can now get those consumers and adult smokers that have transitioned to vaping to these products onto something that's more sustainable, hopefully without those negative consequences that you outline.
So that's interesting. So you're not entirely against this plan to ban disposable vapes?
Well, as you say, it has had material benefit. What you've got to imagine is in particularly supermarkets and convenience stores, the vaping market is vast, and over 80% of that vaping market is through single use as classed as disposables. But there are definitely more sustainable alternatives that have been available for some time. So it's important now that we enable proper communication to those consumers via those retailers to say, these products have benefited you. You've made that switch to a safer alternative, safer, I stress, not without risk, but safer and materially safer. But actually, the clarity is really important. So retailers can move on from those products, hopefully ensure that the environmental impact, the litter on the streets is no longer, and actually get them onto a product that's more sustainable for them. So there is consequences, as I say, and we may come on to speak about the black market and the fines associated with still selling these beyond the June date. But overall, we'd rather get the clarity, support those smokers, previous smokers, to find the right products that are more sustainable.
Well, you have very neatly, Marcus, led me on to what was going to be my next question. What do you think the impact will be? Will there be a black market in disposable vapes now?
Yeah, I mean, there is regrettably a huge black market that exists today. And therefore, these retailers are selling products that in many cases are not even notified and registered via the proper regulation channels in the UK. So that's enough of a risk already. So clearly they're prepared to flout the rules already and sell these products, which has both consumer safety concerns as well as being illegal. There's a link to access to youths. And obviously the fines of £200 for a fixed penalty notice in the event that they're still found to be selling these post the ban is a real concern. And therefore, the enforcement agencies, trading standards, do a great job, but they are under-resourced, and therefore this places a further potential risk on them that potentially these retailers already breaking the law will carry on doing so, which is terrible.
It's a very interesting point about the amount of disposable vapes that are already being sold through a kind of black market. So why is there a black market in them already then, Marcus? I mean, is it just that they are that much cheaper? I don't vape, so I've got no idea. If I went into a supermarket and bought a disposable vape currently, how much would that cost me?
You're probably looking about £5 a unit. So bizarrely, they are actually the most expensive way to vape. So from that perspective, it's just about the convenience, the simplicity, which is akin to lighting a cigarette. These things are very simple and easy to use, which is great for the adult smoker. That is the positive gain that it's made. But actually, to your point, the accessibility of these have ballooned in the last 2 years. And actually, the ability for someone to actually purchase one of these is about £5.
So they're not necessarily super cheap then. And if people are going on the black market, presumably they're getting a significant discount on that.
Yeah, they are. And without getting into the nuance, and I'll try and keep this as simple as possible for your listeners, some of the black market products are disposable, will be very similar to those on the legitimate market, but actually many of them, and the vast majority, are cartoon characters. They actually have a greater capacity. So rather than the 2 ml legal limit, they'll actually have 8 to 10 ml of liquid within them, which really is valuable to a consumer because it means they don't have to replace them. And arguably, there's not as much litter or potentially lithium-ion batteries being placed into household waste, which is not where they should go. So there's definitely better value products, but highly illegal and not registered and not gone through the toxicology tests that happen with the regulated products.
What about the wider issue of vaping, Marcus, not just these disposable vapes? I mean, I hear what you say, that a lot of people say they are good for people who have been long-term smokers to quit cigarettes and move on to vapes instead. But increasingly, you see a huge number of young people vaping in school playgrounds, say, or outside the school gates, who never previously smoked cigarettes.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So as you say, and firstly to put on record, as I said previously, these products are not without risk. Full stop. If anyone out there is thinking that these are absolutely as good as fresh air, they are categorically wrong. But if you are a smoker, and I'll come to your specific point, there is no better time to transition to vaping if you can't find an alternative by just giving up. And many, many people can't. So that's full stop. It is categorically materially safer than smoking. But as you say, if the pendulum has swung and children who would be otherwise smoking potentially, certainly when I was a child, that was one of the things you may experiment with. These were never designed for that reason. And it's the mass availability and potentially the coolness that sits behind this for whatever reason. It was never designed for that purpose. And if the ban on single-use vapes makes these less accessible and less appealing because they are easy and relatively low cost, then that's a good thing, because that's not what these products were designed for and is illegal today. But the issue is that black market area that are flouting the regulation today, whether by selling illegal products or selling those products to children, of which is illegal.
And in the same way that the governments have gone after smoking over recent decades, first with a ban on smoking indoors in pubs and public places, now with legislation coming forward on banning smoking in pub gardens, if they then in future years move on to banning non-disposable vapes in a similar way, how would you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that would be horrific. I mean, the societal benefit, I personally have worked for over 30 years in categories such as chocolate, alcohol, soft drinks, all of which have a profile on a risk continuum. You know, breathe fresh air, take water, and don't eat saturated fat or sugar, full stop. I'm not trying to make this a trivial discussion, because vaping is not risk-free. But clearly the timing of that needs to be very, very careful and proportionate to ensure that we don't swing the pendulum back. And even in this single-use ban has some risk that those dual users, of which there are many of them, because they're still not confident enough that vaping is materially safer, despite it being so, will revert back to cigarettes. So I think we're a long way off that. There's a lot of great work that has gone on. There's 6 million more smokers. We need to build confidence and make sure they have the right products accessible to them to make the switch before we start thinking about what's the next level of regulation beyond this.
Marcus, thank you. Marcus Saxton there, the chairman of the Independent British Vape Trade Association and chief executive of the Totally Wicked Group.